to Palmetto Hurricane, a SkyWACH weather special report. I'm Henry Rothenberg.
I'm Garrett Biedenball.
And I'm Alexis King.
The 2013 hurricane season is here, and over the next half hour, it's our goal to make sure that you and your family are prepared should one strike our state this season.
And although it's been over 20 years since a major hurricane has hit the Palmetto State, this year could be our year.
That's right, Garrett, and we're going to take you shopping to make sure you have all the items you need for your household to stay safe and comfortable before, during, and after the storm.
To be fully prepared for hurricane season, it's important to understand how these massive and sometimes deadly storms form. When an area of low pressure moves into warm ocean waters, clouds and thunderstorms develop. Once there is organized counterclockwise rotation and winds of 38 miles per hour or less, you have a tropical depression. Once winds increase to 39 miles per hour or higher, you have a tropical storm. And when winds reach 74 miles per hour or higher, you have a hurricane. Also worth noting, hurricane season, it is just 6 months, but there are 2 months in particular that we see a lot of activity. Those months are August and September, and the reason for that is because it's when the waters in the Atlantic are warmest. At the beginning of the season, tropical cyclones typically develop in the Gulf of Mexico, where the waters are the warmest during the month of June. In July, the area shifts to the east over the Caribbean Sea and even off the Carolina coast. The vertical wind shear is typically too high across the rest of the Atlantic. As August rolls around, the western Atlantic becomes more favorable for development, as well as the eastern Caribbean Sea. September, the month with the climatological peak of hurricane season, can bring tropical cyclone formation pretty much anywhere in the Atlantic, including off the west coast of Africa. October begins the shift back westward as wind shear increases in the eastern Atlantic. And as November hits, activity usually becomes more sparse as sea surface temperatures cool down. Tropical cyclones are rated by the Saffir-Simpson wind scale. When a storm has winds of at least 39 miles per hour, it's called a tropical storm. Minor damage and some flooding can occur. Once it has winds of 74 miles per hour, it's classified as a Category 1 hurricane. Those winds can produce some damage to roofs, trees, power lines, and poles. When the hurricane's wind strengthens to 96 miles per hour, it becomes a Category 2 hurricane. This could result in major roof damage, some trees to be uprooted, and near total power loss for several days. A hurricane becomes a major hurricane when it has winds of 111 miles per hour. This is Category 3 status. Homes could suffer major damage, and electricity and water could become unavailable for several days or weeks after the storm has passed. Catastrophic damage will occur once a storm's wind strengthens to 131 miles per hour. This is a Category 4 hurricane. Well-built homes could suffer major structural damage, power outages could last for weeks, and fallen trees and power poles could block the entrance to communities. Finally, if a storm has winds of 156 miles per hour or higher, like Hurricane Andrew in 1992, most homes could be destroyed and some areas could be uninhabitable for weeks or months. So if one is headed towards the Palmetto State, how would the state be warned? Garrett Biedenball has more.
Thanks, Henry. It's important to know the difference between a watch and a warning. The National Hurricane Center in Miami, Florida, is responsible for issuing tropical storm and hurricane watches and warnings for areas that are expected to feel direct impacts. A tropical storm watch is issued when tropical storm, subtropical, or post-tropical cyclone conditions are expected within the specified area within 48 hours. A tropical storm warning means those conditions are expected to impact the area within 36 hours. A hurricane watch will be issued for an area when hurricane conditions are possible. The announcement will be made 48 hours in advance of the onset of expected tropical storm force conditions. When those conditions are within 36 hours of affecting the area, a hurricane warning will be issued. This is a time when your hurricane preparedness plan and possible evacuation should already be in full swing. The local National Weather Service office issues watches and warnings for more specific threats, like flooding or tornadoes.
Now, while hurricane season is June 1st through November 30th, it's important to note hurricanes don't just strike in that window. In fact, our own Garrett Biedenbach, your first weekend with the Watch Fox family, and it was a little bit busier than normal for a May weekend.
Yeah, we actually had Tropical Storm Alberto form right off the South Carolina coast in May of 2012, so storms can form outside the traditional June 1st to November 30th, and we can also have many impacts here in South Carolina.
And we actually had two storms that formed in May of 2012. The other one off the Florida coast was Beryl. It was a record-setting year in 2012. Fortunately, 2013 has not been like that leading up to hurricane season, but it still doesn't mean the season itself won't be active. Still to come, would you know what to do if a hurricane was threatening the Palmetto State? Plus, what about supplies that you would need if you tried to ride out the storm? Our Alexis King has that. But up next, Garrett Biedenbaugh traveled to the Low Country to find out what they've learned since Hurricane Hugo. Stay with us. Palmetto Hurricane, a SkyWACH weather report. Will be right back. Welcome back. It's been over 20 years since Hugo hit our state. And while many of us have grown numb to the idea that a major hurricane could hit South Carolina, it's still very much possible. Would the Low Country be ready if one threatened? Meteorologist Garrett Biedenbaugh traveled down there to find out.
It was September 21st, 1989, a night that most South Carolinians will never forget. Hurricane Hugo made landfall on the state of South Carolina in the Low Country, becoming the state's most costly and strongest hurricane to ever make landfall. Now, looking around here today, there's not much damage left, but what if the Low Country and the state of South Carolina was hit again?
We know even more about the potential paths of hurricanes. So when the word goes out that you need to evacuate, go.
Those words from someone who knows a thing or two about preparing a city to bear Mother Nature's wrath.
And everyone we talked to said the most important thing you can do is evacuate your citizens. And they will not go simply because you say, we think it's a good idea.
And it isn't just bigger cities that have to know how to prepare. The little ones do as well.
It's not a time to party. It's not a time to say, yeah, we're going to ride out the hurricane. It's a time to get out of here and then come back to what's left.
Mayor Tim Goodwin of Folly Beach says hurricanes like Hugo completely changed the landscape of Folly Beach in the Low Country.
Streets disappeared under mounds of sand. And I'm sure that people really, you look at the pictures and that we have, and you don't even recognize the spot that you know the picture was taken.
And no one knows that better than former Folly Beach Mayor Bob Linville, who was installed just 30 days prior to the landfalling Category 4 hurricane.
This is for real. This is a big one. You need to be prepared and do what you can do. Well, I came back here at about 11 o'clock that night, came into here, took a Sharpie, and I wrote out, folks, it's time to leave. This is the real one. And I went to all the bars, the hotel at that time, and I left those flyers in there for people to get out.
Hugo brings back many memories for the former mayor, and one is always there underneath one of his rental homes.
This is the water level from Hugo right here that came in through here.
Hopefully we won't have to draw another line higher than that.
Oh, I don't want to draw one. I don't want to draw one an inch.
That's
Wow. Yeah, I gotta take a picture.
5 feet.
One of the most vulnerable spots in Folly Beach is called the Washout, named for, well, washing out.
It came in further north at McClellanville. That was the eye.
Yeah.
And so we were up there and missed it. Now, if it had come down around Beaufort, we'd have called help.
Yeah.
Absolutely been a disaster here.
So if we have another storm hitting this area with the right way of the winds and the right angle of the storm, I mean, this could very likely be washed out again?
Oh, without a doubt.
And with every year comes a new hurricane season and a chance to be in Mother Nature's path.
We've had some close scares, but nothing so far. I'll lock now.
Even though Hurricane Hugo was over 20 years ago, it's still very much in the minds of South Carolinians. It's a reminder that it only takes one storm to change the landscape and the lives of many. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. Many residents of South Carolina didn't actually grow up here, so they may never have experienced tropical weather before. Would you know what to do if a hurricane was threatening South Carolina? Would you know when it's time to evacuate? Here are some important things that you need to know when tropical weather is pushing towards our state.
About 90% of what you do to prepare for one type of disaster can be applied to all the types of disasters your communities may face. It's that extra 10% that you have to take into account for the specific information.
That was Derek Becker, Public Information Officer for the South Carolina Emergency Management Division.
SCEMD is the primary coordinating agency for any major disaster that could affect South Carolina. Basically, when there's a crisis or a major disaster that grows in scope beyond the local first responders' ability to respond to it, save lives, protect property, that sort of thing, we would step in and support the county emergency management agencies and the local first responders to make sure they had what they need.
It's at SCEMD and the State Emergency Operations Center that everyone from the governor down will be working to monitor the storm when SCEMD goes into operations mode. So who's responsible for making sure that SCEMD is fully staffed in the event of a hurricane? Meet Stephen Batson, Chief of Operations.
In the Emergency Operations Center, we typically run 12-hour shifts with two shifts covering a 24-hour span of time.
And while there are a number of people physically in SCEMD working to keep you safe, there are also agencies across the country assisting them in monitoring the situation.
Advances in technology, we're also coordinating off-site through teleconferences and video teleconferences with a whole host of partners, including FEMA and even potentially the national level emergency operations centers and regional operations centers.
What about when the word comes down for evacuation? How does the state get thousands of vehicles away from the coast with some order? Well, it's a term called contraflow. What does contraflow mean?
What that means is I-26, whenever the governor announces a mandatory evacuation from the coast, they're gonna reroute I-26. Everything is gonna be headed back east or back west, which will be coming back toward Columbia.
And how can the Highway Patrol get all eastbound traffic off the interstate?
Between here and Charleston, they'll have troopers set up not letting anybody get on the eastbound side.
What about after a storm is hit and when people want to come together and help each other out? Believe it or not, you can actually be putting yourself in harm's way just by going out and helping if you are not properly trained. That's where a familiar face to the Watch Fox family comes in. Former Chief Meteorologist Justin Keir now serves as the Citizen Corps Coordinator for CERT. What is CERT?
Community Emergency Response Team.
So are CERT members like first responders?
The CERT program focuses on citizen disaster preparedness. So essentially, CERT volunteers, a lot of people wonder, are they first responders? It's a program that teaches people how to be the bridge between first responders and their community.
While CERT members may not be first responders, the first responders may rely heavily on CERT members aiding them in where assistance is needed.
The idea of CERT, the reason that CERT was created was that if we have a major disaster here, for example, an earthquake, first responders may not be able to get to you, your family, or your community. And that's where CERT is going to come into play. CERT has a tie to the local emergency management in your county, in your jurisdiction. You're going to be interacting with the county emergency manager.
CERT members will serve a vital role in the aftermath of a hurricane, and it's a safer way for you to help your community after a storm. If CERT is something that interests you, Justin has some helpful information for how you can become a CERT.
A great resource for how to find out information about the CERT program, check out scemd.org. Also, many county emergency management offices themselves have their own CERT page. You can find us on Facebook, you can find us on Twitter. We're putting out YouTube information as well as we head into the hurricane season. And then as we look to the local offices, many local offices, whether they be emergency management offices, fire departments, or actual CERT teams, have their own Facebook pages and Twitter handles as well.
Remember, you can get the latest tropical weather information on our website through our Fox Hurricane Tracker. It's a great and valuable resource for you to have this hurricane season. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You know, we've been talking about what you need to know when a hurricane threatens our state. But what if you make the decision, which is your decision, to ride out the storm? Well, as you heard from South Carolina Emergency Management Division, the first 72 hours at least are on you. What are things that you need, like water or even a weather radio? But there's more than just those two items. Our Alexis King explains.
When a storm hits and you don't have electricity or running water, it's a lot like camping. So we came to Sportsman's Warehouse to find some cool stuff to help you ride out the storm. Come with me. We've separated the emergency supplies into things you need to have and things that are nice to have. Let's go ahead and get started with the basics. When you're out of electricity, you're definitely going to need enough water and food for your family.
Pull that off right there, and you punch it.
It's recommended that you have enough for at least 3 days, but I suggest up to a week's worth for the entire family.
And I tell you what, you can survive on a lot of things, but it's hard to survive without water.
Some other items you absolutely have to have: a flashlight and batteries. That way you're always prepared. And it's a good idea to have a lantern, which can be better than using candles due to the fire hazard. Every home should already have an emergency first aid kit, but now is the time to make sure yours is filled with everything you might need in case of an injury or illness. Another great thing to do is stay informed. One of the best ways to do that during a weather emergency is with a weather radio. Many are crank and battery operated, so they can run when the electricity is out. Another way to stay connected, you're going to need your cell phone, not only to find out where the storm is moving, but also to let your family know that you're okay. There are solar-powered chargers to help you keep all of your devices charged. Small items you will want to keep on your must-have list include a lighter, waterproof matches, and a whistle in case you need to call for help. Finally, make sure you have cash and any prescriptions you or your family members might need. So now we've covered your needs. Let's get into the fun stuff. The electricity could be out for days, so it'd be nice to stock up on a few extra things to be as comfortable as possible. In case there's any damage to your home, you'll want to have a tarp to keep extra water out, and along with the tarp, grab a few bungee cords and some duct tape. If you don't already have a grill at your home, you can purchase a smaller camp stove to cook food as well as boil water. There are even small tablets that work as an emergency stove.
It's a portable little stove. You can put a little coffee cup or whatever you need to on there. And if you need to do some water, boil your water on here.
Finally, have a few things on hand to keep the kids entertained. Books, cards, and games can help pass the time.
If you can get their morale going, then it's going to make Mama and Daddy and the rest of the family a lot happier because everybody else is happy.
And it's just as simple as that. Now you have everything that you need and a few things that are nice. We'll see you after the storm.
The 2013 hurricane season is here, and it's here until November 30th. And while you may not always keep a watchful eye to the sky, know that your SkyWACH weather team does. So when you hear us say the order for evacuation has been issued, it's important to know this. Be weather ready and go. Already have an inland location you can go to and potentially stay for a long period of time. The further inland you are, the safer you are.
It's also a good idea to know the difference between a watch and a warning. A tropical storm or hurricane watch is issued when those conditions are expected within the specified area within 48 hours. A tropical storm or hurricane warning means those conditions are expected to impact the area within 36 hours.
So remember, you can always find us on air, online, and on the go.
Thank you for watching Palmetto Hurricane, a SkyWACH weather special report.